Right, okay, so we're back. My pastry has now been in the fridge for a good hour. The advantage of it being in the fridge is that it should stiffen up, so you should find it becomes slightly firmer. It'll also mean that it becomes slightly tougher when you roll it out. Now you can see this has a really nice tacky consistency, so it almost looks like it's sort of slightly sweated in the bag. And you can see it's got that stretch to it as well that you want your dough to have. Now, top tips with your flour. You do want flour on the work surface to make sure it doesn't stick. And you do want flour on your rolling pin to make sure it doesn't stick. However, rolling out this amount of dough will stretch out way further than your work surface is. So shrink it down, it's much easier to roll. And it will make your life easier in the long run. Okay, so you can see I've just got a small, it's almost palm size, that piece of dough, but that would be much easier to roll out and you'll be surprised how much it makes. So place it into the centre of your work surface, flatten it down with your hand a little bit, and make sure you've got space for your rolling pin either side to be able to roll out. So move my bowl out of the way for a second. Move it a little bit up this side. Hopefully you can see that nice and clearly. Now, one of the key things when rolling is that we always roll from the centre and we roll out front and back. You do need to sort of release this one a little bit so you can see you need to roll it and push it forward, and you can see my pressure is with my hands on top of the rolling pin. I'm leaning down on that rolling pin to get that pressure and roll it through. Now it will do this and it will shrink back. So I don't know how clearly you could see that. If I roll that out, you can see how much it shrinks back, okay? So the dough will have a tendency to do that. That's a good thing, that's what flour dough should do, what a pasta dough should do. That shows it's got all that elasticity that we want in it, okay? It does make life a little bit harder when you're rolling it. So you can see I'm having to put quite a lot of pressure on there. Now, if I look at this, it looks thin. It is quite thin, but you can see one, I have a wider bit at the top, which I don't really want. I have a wider bit at the bottom. And you can see that that is actually about 3 mil thick, and I want that to be a lot thinner than that, okay? I also want to be able to see my hands through it, and at the moment I can't quite see my hands through it. So that's the rule, is to be able to see your hands through it. Right, so again with the rolling pin, and this is where you're really going to start building up those muscles, working on rolling this out as flat as you can and as tight as you can so you get it as thin as you can. If it is slightly sticky, you can add more flour to it, but the more flour you add to your pastry, the more you'll taste when you cook it, so you do need to be conscious of that. Alright, so flip it over, roll it out again, and you can see what I mean about work surface space, and you can see how much I'm getting from that, quite a bit there. Now I could go as far as, this is almost, so I don't know if you can see that, but you can almost see my hand through that. Alright, so if I move my hand about, you can see my fingers through the pastry. That's pretty good. What I am going to do is I'm going to cut it in half. Nice sharp knife with pasta so that it cuts it in one as quickly as you can, and see if I can just extend that a little bit more. There you go, and I've got more work surface space to do that with, and you can see that thinner edge now I can get right to, because I've given myself a bit more space. Now if you're like me and you've got a dark work surface where you can see these dark lines underneath, I can actually see those through my pastry now. So I know it's a good thickness. And when I bring it up, you can see how thin that is. It's light paper and you can see my hand perfectly well through it. Okay, and that's what you should be looking for. So, trick to dry these out, place them over the edge of a bowl and they can sit there while you do your other pieces. If you need flour to stop it from sticking, don't be afraid to add add as much as you need to, because you can dust it off afterwards before cooking, and actually it should be a really dry dough. Now you can see there, I was just trying to get that end bit, I'm holding this end down and push away. Alright, so again, just going to try one more roll out, so I get it just that little bit thin. The thinner you get it, the better. But you can see I'm starting to then break it, so it may not be the best thickness, but again you can see my hand for it. Okay, now that's 2 parts, and remember I still have this other half to go, so I can still roll this one out as well. Again, I'm going to split that one. Now you'll notice I don't have an apron, and this is one time you probably do want to protect yourself from all the flour, but also my kitchen is getting covered in flour in this instance, so please make sure you have a good work surface space, and please be prepared to clean up after yourself. It's all very well making pastry for the family when pasta for the family when there's none in the shops, but I'm sure they won't appreciate it if it ends up all over the place. Now, one of the recipes I'll share with you is a ravioli recipe. And a nice easy way to make ravioli is to cut it out using a pastry cutter, like this. And you can cut out, I'll just show you this for a second. Cut out 2 halves. And then place your filling. So if you make a filling, sorry, I'll move this into shot so you can actually see it. So cut out 2 halves of your pastry cutter, and you can make a filling to go in the centre, and then attach those 2 together. So you'll put 1 half over the top of the other. Top tip, don't do it on the work surface because it will stick to the work surface. Bring it into your hand, place a bit of egg around the edge, place your bit in the centre, then place your top on, and crimp the 2 edges together. Okay, so it's a slightly bigger one to do. Because they're quite large pieces of ravioli, you don't need to do that many for people. I'm going to roll that out again in a second. Is the other nice thing about pasta dough is that you can reuse it as many times as you like. So leftovers don't need to go in the bin, they can be rolled out and used again. Right, I'm now happy with that bit to use for my pasta. I'm going to do this bit in a bit. I'll add that bit in a second, but rather than making you wait for me to roll out another, I shall show you how to chop this to make our tagliatelle style pasta. Okay, so to make our straight pieces like this, we do need that to be able to dry out. Overnight's a really good amount of time, so you need to find somewhere to hang it. So here we go, my next top tip, rolling pin over a bowl. We all need a bowl to mix in, we all need a rolling pin to roll it with, so hopefully you have those 2 items. If you don't have a big enough bowl or a reasonable bowl, you could always get 2 items and prop your rolling pin, so I could prop it on there and maybe find something else to prop it on. But I'm just going to put it across the bowl. Now we're making our strips of pasta. If what you do is you fold your rolled out pasta pastry very lightly so it doesn't stick together too much. It will have a tendency to stick anyway, but we can peel it apart because it's got enough flour on it. And then use a nice sharp knife. Hopefully your knife covers it in one first swoop. That's usually a better way of doing it. It makes it not stick too much. If you haven't got a particularly sharp knife, that's fine. It will do the same job. It just makes life a little bit easier if you do have a nice sharp knife to do this with. Okay, so we go across. Now, I've done these quite wide. To be fair, I could Slim them off a little bit if I wanted to, so I've made those a bit thinner. So it's your judgment as to whether you feel, you know, you could make them slightly thinner. Right, so at the moment it looks like I did all this rolling and now I just have lots of chunks of pasta. Well, actually, believe it or not, they will unfold. Da 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 da! Yay! There's my bit of pasta. Mrs. Dyke can make pasta. Yay! I'll roll over the rolling pin. And I would leave it there to dry. I would probably leave it over the rolling pin overnight. If you've got, like me, a cat who's likely to go around on the work surface and maybe touch the pasta, you could always put a tea towel, a dry tea towel or something like that over the top to protect it from getting cat hairs on it, or I don't think she'd eat pasta, but she might do. So just to be sure that she doesn't, I would put a tea towel over it overnight. If these overlap each other, because obviously you're going to run out of room trying to put them next door to each other, that's okay too, because there is enough flour on them that they shouldn't stick to each other now. And you'll notice my hands are really dry now, the pasta looks really dry now, so you can get away with quite a lot now, as long as you've got those strips. What you'll probably find is when you get it in the morning that these will snap off rather than come off as flexible as they are, and that's a good thing, and it will boil better at that texture. But there we go. If you didn't have pasta at home, you could easily have pasta now. So there's no excuses. I want to see some lovely pasta meals from all of you. I'll put on the ravioli recipe, but I've shown you how to make tagliatelle essentially. And you can experiment with this pasta dough in many different ways, so you could make lots of different styles of pasta. It doesn't have to just be used for this one. You can make little bows. Actually, I might show you how to do the bows because that's quite a fun one to do as well. So I'll just finish that one off there. I'll move those aside for a second. So I showed you how to do the ravioli. So bows, pretty much the same thing. If you cut your pasta into nice even rectangles. Okay, so that's one block. Now I haven't got a crimper to crimp and cut the edges so they're all pretty, but you can then cut it into little rectangles like so. And all you literally do is just pinch the centre, and that will give you your bow. Da-da! Da-da-da-da-da! There you go. Right, so we have pasta bows, tagliatelle, even ravioli options, so you now have pasta in your household. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please answer the questions, and if you fancy making your own pasta, please post me any pictures. It'd be really good to share them. Well done guys, thank you.